2 years, maybe 300%. It's just nuts what it's done. It's a great point, Travis. And those candles, I mean, look at it, guys. It's gone vertical in the last stages when we're talking from 2025. You see gradual rises before that, and then it's just shot up like something crazy. And this is not normal for silver at all. Do you remember about 2 years ago, I was saying that I believe silver is going to go up, 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 up. Do you remember that?
I do. And stupid me, I didn't buy silver.
You didn't?
Yeah, I didn't buy silver. I didn't. I got shares in Heckler, but yeah, not actual silver.
Yeah, well, it's far out. This last Christmas in 2025 was just phenomenal what happened. And this is so uncharacteristic for this precious metal. Normally, these precious metals rise gradually. If we have a look at the charts that we've lined up, we'll have a look at gold first if we could.
You want gold?
Yeah, let's start with gold. It's the spot price that's so big. The central banks have been buying up gold for a long time now and really using that as the base currency. If everything goes kaput in terms of the economies of the world, it's seen as a safe haven. And when you've got nations, particularly third world countries, that have inflation going through the roof, a lot of investors will go and pile their money into this as well, because it's an appreciating asset as opposed to cash, which is subject to inflation. And this is a chart that we're looking at over. What is this, a 2-year chart? A 1-year chart, I'm sorry.
It's actually about 9 months. I'll just switch it over to the 1 year. It's kind of frozen on me, but that's okay. We'll keep going. I'm just waiting for it to catch up.
That's cool. You can see what's the spot price today, Travis? I'm not seeing that on the. It's a bit.
So up here, it's this is US dollars, so it's 4,569. So if we get the good old calculator out, US to Australia is roughly 1.55%. So we've got 569 times that by 1.55. You're looking just about 7,100 roughly.
Wow, $7,100 for one tiny ounce of gold, guys. It's like that big, right? An ounce of gold.
It's a coin. It's one of those gold coin. The Olympic gold medals, those big round ones, are about 4 ounces in size.
Yeah, so, but they're not 100% gold.
No, they're plated gold. So yeah.
For sure. They bite into those and they still will just bite in and get a dented tooth. They're not that soft. But yeah, those ounce of gold they're 24 carat, they are pure, like 0.9999% purity. That's crazy.
You sounded like Trump then.
It is crazy, yeah. And if you look at what silver's been doing too. Now, what's interesting about this is silver is an industrial metal as well. Now, some really interesting things were happening to silver just before Christmas. There was a shortage, and I did a seminar in November showing the shortages. What happened was a lot of these precious metals went into the United States because people were concerned that Trump was going to put a tariff on these. And a lot of the gold and silver, particularly gold, was held offshore in London. They moved it over to New York, which was a big deal in terms of moving all of that, because a lot of it has to be resmelted and done to fit the American components. And then they would have to go through all the insurance and logistics as well. So it didn't go straight to London. It had to actually go to Switzerland where they resmelt it. And then they realized, with silver in particular, that there was a shortage in London. And a lot of traders were then moving silver over the border from New York, where there was a surplus, back over to London. And there was a $2 difference. Well, this is called an arbitrage trade. Now, the problem was, guys, that just before Christmas, the Shanghai market was going, hey, we want the physical stuff. And you've got to realize a lot of Wall Street money is paper money. It's trades that happen on the markets, but they don't actually physically own it. And at the same time, you had banks who have manipulated the price of silver for decades, where it was rumored that there were about at least 4 big banks that were shorting the market. That means they were betting that it would go down and set their trade positions in a way that would do that. The problem was that it was rumored that one of the big banks in the United States couldn't meet the futures demand, which mean they were trading it and they actually had to give delivery on the silver that they were trading for because it met the price that they were betting it wouldn't meet. And so they had a real issue, and the market froze overnight. And apparently the rumors were there was all these meetings going on in the middle of the night for the United States at like 2:30 in the morning, trying to sort this issue out. Well, when you've got anything, basic economics, a bigger demand for what is there as a supply, the price goes up. And this is what happened to silver. Take a look at what the chart did in the recent times. This thing just went through. You can see it's almost gone vertical, silver. And so we've gone, what is this? Sorry. I thought that was a comma. I was going, this is not $80,000. It's gone up now to $83 an ounce. And, 3 years ago,
83.50. Yep.
83.50. There you go, US.
Yeah.
3 years ago, we were in Australian dollars doing like $35 an ounce to $40 an ounce, anywhere in between there. Sometimes I think I got even less, something like $32, $33 Australian. It was probably the lowest I was getting at 3 years ago. And this has just gone crazy, guys, because now that's 83 US. So this is just going up, up, up. Now, the flow-on effect of this is all these guys who are into saving the planet, all the green energy type stuff. This makes it far more expensive to do this. This means your batteries, your solar panels, everything has just suddenly gotten more expensive. And this is concerning them to the point where you've got Samsung who want to bring out a new battery for electric vehicles. Just before Christmas announced that they were going to get access to a mine in Mexico where they would have for the first 2 years all the proceeds of the silver coming through that mine. That's how much the manufacturing world are going. And they're prepared to buy it at that time at $80 an ounce when it was on the paper trade, at 75, because they're going, that silver is worth a $50 million contract to us. We'll pay it. We'll pay it. It's more than we want to pay for it, but we'll pay it because we've got to make more money as we deliver these products and goods, your phones, your computers, everything electronic, because, of course, silver is the best conductor of electricity.
So one thing that I'm noticing here is, and I'll see if the paintbrush will actually work. If you have a look at the size difference of these candles here, is massive when you compare them to, if you go back even April last year, have a look at this is over a 2-day trade. That's like a quarter of the candles. So this is the biggest move back in April. This is like nearly a daily, weekly move over here. Like the volatility, the movement, the swing on a daily basis of silver now compared to what it was back just, what's that, 9 months ago? That's the thing that I find really, really fascinating, what's going on here. And that also explains why, like I said, I do have shares in Hecla Mining and Pan Pacific Silver. They've been going absolutely bonkers over the last, say, 3 months or so. And I have to give a shout out to a friend of ours, Dwayne, who put me into the silver side of things. Yes, it's done really well for me. So I'm happy. It's just obviously volatility makes opportunity. Opportunity equals wealth. So I'm dumbfounded by what's happening on this. Like the silver, I just never expected it to go this far.
If you had bought it 3 years ago in the physical form, you'd be up almost 300% now. It's just crazy what it's done. Who would have thought? Let's have a look at the comparison charts, if we could, of gold and silver together, just briefly. So this
Sorry, just quickly. So Derek, just quickly on your 3 years ago mark, that would have been $18 US an ounce compared to 84. So you'd be looking at nearly a 5 times return in 3 years.
Okay, 2 years, maybe 300%. It's just nuts what it's done. That's a great point, Travis. And those candles, I mean, look at it, guys. It's gone vertical in the last stages when we're talking from 2025. You see gradual rises before that, and then it's just shot up like something crazy. And this is not normal for silver at all. This is just an anomaly that is just fascinating. And people are going, well, is it going to come back down? Well, when you've got a shortage of it and they want the physical demand of it, the estimates are, from the reports I'm hearing, the world is 2 years behind in producing how much silver the world actually needs to produce everything that we're consuming right now. That's how much it's in demand. So that's really interesting. And bear in mind, most silver mines aren't solely silver mines. It's a byproduct of what they're pulling out of the earth, like copper, lead, these kind of things. It's a byproduct.
Yep. And I know that we do actually have quite a few, because we have those copper, tin, iron ore, and all that sort of stuff in Australia. We actually do have quite a few silver mines in Australia as well. So this actually puts us on a really good wicket, especially moving forwards. The other one is with all the rare earth deals that's going on, talking of byproducts, gladium, I think that's how you pronounce it, the byproduct of making aluminium. Yeah, that's never knew this. We used to just throw it away. We've got massive stockpiles of it in WA. So that's going to be a major trading boom for Western Australia, especially when it comes to America, because they're demanding it hand over fist. So did you want to have a look at gold now?
Oh, I thought we did. Okay. No, we're good. The comparison between the two, if we have a look at that quickly, between gold and silver. So you can see there how they've performed as a percentage. Silver has really climbed up, and this is what I expected was going to happen, because the gold-silver ratio was so extreme before that. So gold, how big a chart is this? 1 year? So over 1 year,
so this is, just over 1 year.
So a 1 year chart, 2025 got your percentage of what, 69.9%. So just under 70% there in terms of return on investment in value. But look at what silver did, 174%. Almost, let's round that up to 175%. That's just amazing in terms of the difference, in terms of what bang for buck. And I think there's with a lot of investors, a lot of uncertainty as to the US dollar and what the BRICS nations have been doing. And they've been piling the retail market into this as well. But obviously the big drivers have been the manufacturing market.
Yep. Well, I can't remember who said this one. I'm going to say it was Warren Buffett, but please don't quote me on that one. I could be wrong. But they were saying that what gold is a hedge against inflation. So 1920, you could buy a really nice Armani suit for an ounce of gold. Today, you can still buy a really nice Armani suit for an ounce of gold. That just shows how inflation has been going up. Gold is sort of like the steady thing. And if you have a look at a straight line from the gold down here to the gold up here, you can see that, there's zombie bits where it's low, then inflation comes up, goes over, and comes out, and it sort of like just generally levels itself out. And early in the year, very, very much the same. But if you do the same thing to silver, so let's get rid of that chart, where we remove that one, go back to this one, and we start with silver, and we go have a look at the top of silver now. You're going to have a look, barely anything is actually below that line over the same 12-month period. So you can actually see silver is, a lot of people say, silver's a hedge against inflation as well. It's clearly not. There is a lot of extreme things going on at the moment, but there's always a really interesting thing, the gold to silver ratio. I love having a look at it. It's one I'm still learning, so please don't take my advice on this one. But at the moment, I still think the silver and gold, the actual direct ratio, how many ounces of silver required to buy an ounce of gold, is where it should be. I think silver's played a lot of catch-up at the moment. But there's too much momentum behind silver, so my guess is silver is going to continue to go up.
Yeah, and you got to remember, about 2 years ago, the gold-silver ratio, people are wondering what that is. It's how many ounces of silver will buy 1 ounce of gold, and it was like 1 to 90 at one point. I mean, it was really extreme, where the normal, is a lot. The spread is a lot less than that in normal conditions. So silver, you're right, has done a lot of catch-up.
I thought it was generally around the 30, 32 ounces of silver per ounce of gold. When it was really good to buy silver against gold was when it was like 19 ounces of silver. That was like, oh my God, it's so amazing. The ratio is phenomenal. But it's just, silver is just bonkers at the moment. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Absolutely. All right. While this has been going on, and why do people think this is a big deal? Excuse me. It's because gold and silver are like God's money. That's how they, even the guy Robert Kiyosaki calls it this. Gold and silver is God's money. The banks like gold. Common man loves silver. Yep. And so you're seeing this with all these questions of currency going on now, and turbulence around currency. What's going to be interesting at the moment is watching the Middle East. Now, we've got this situation in Iran where, if we show the footage here, there is upheaval and unrest going on. And you think, why is this interesting? Because the people are fed up with the leadership there, and they're rising up. this is really fascinating. And also with the spiritual nation, apparently it is the biggest biggest church that is underground in that country in the world. So you see all this upheaval going on, people fighting for their freedoms in this nation. And if you compare that, or in terms of where this is going to go, look at what the United States has just done in Venezuela. If we have a look at this situation, as you know, if you haven't already been living under a rock, the United States went in there and they took the dictator Maduro out and brought him back to the United States. Now, that on a military operation, how they did that is just phenomenal in terms of logistics. But putting that aside, whether you agree with the politics or not, this puts a very economic situation in play, with Venezuela being the biggest producer of oil in the world. Their reserves were in the billions in terms of barrels of oil that they had in stock, and Trump is now talking about selling that in cahoots with them so they profit as well as the United States. The United States looks at, we put a lot of infrastructure in this nation. That infrastructure was taken away from us. But they also are going in with, hey, Venezuela has been killing our people with the drugs and the drug lords that have been going on there. We've seen footage of the US military picking off a lot of drug lord boats of late, and that going in. If you want to have a bit of an American perspective on that, have a listen to what Vice President Lance has to say on the matter. It's really interesting in terms of how does it affect the everyday American.
In Venezuela, how does that help the average American?
Well, a few things, Jesse. First of all, what it means is we're going to be able to control the incredible natural resources of Venezuela, which is good for America in a few ways. Number one, it allows us to put leverage on our enemies. Number two, it makes sure that if Americans need high quality, low cost power, we're always going to have access to it. And then the third thing is it does demonstrate American military excellence, which makes people afraid to cross us in the future. Some of the best ways that you maintain the peace is to make it clear that you carry a very strong sword if you ever need to use it. So I think it's good for us in a lot of different ways. We also have to remember, Jesse, this is in our neighborhood. This is not Iraq. This is not 7,000 miles away. This is in our neighborhood. If we cannot follow the basic principle, which has been a cornerstone of American foreign policy for 200 years, that we control our neighborhood, a lot of bad people are going to take advantage of it. What the President of the United States said is, in our neighborhood, the United States calls the shots. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it is again under the President's leadership.
What's interesting, obviously, he's pointing out the defense reasons for going in and doing this. But at the same time, there was a rumor that there was a Chinese diplomat that was negotiating a deal in Venezuela at the time. One wonders, and I'm speculating, I can't prove this, but was that what the impetus for the US to go in and do the attack they did? It's interesting how that plays out in terms of what the prices of oils will do, but also what it means for oil companies in the United States that are set up to process different grades of oil. And that's going to be really interesting. They've got, of course, their own oil reserves, the US, but now they've got access to the Venezuelan stockpile.
I just did a quick Google search, and there's a lot of stations like NBC, Bloomberg, and First Post, which does a lot of Chinese stuff, actually all reporting that the Chinese diplomat was there. So personally, I'd be quite comfortable stating that China was actually there. It's a really, really tough one because no one really knows what China's thinking. So that goes, it is a very, very tough one.
It puts the United States, more importantly, in a very solid position as far as South America is concerned. Have a look at what Trump's put out there in truth when he is looking at this in response to Cuba. He says Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided, inverted brackets, security services for the last two Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. Most of the Cubans are dead from last week's USA attack, and Venezuela doesn't need protection anymore from the thugs and extortioners who held them hostage for so many years. Venezuela now has the United States of America, the most powerful military in the world by far, to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba, zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it is too late. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So this is really interesting in terms of where this puts America as the policeman, so to speak, in South America, saying to these drug lords, if you're doing wrongdoings, we're going to come after you. Bear in mind, too, that the Democrats didn't recognize under the Biden era this Maduro as the legal president of Venezuela. There are footages that I've seen where the people of Venezuela were rocking up for the election and at 9 a.m. in the morning couldn't get access because the gates were locked and there were soldiers on the other side. They weren't being accessed. And it's really interesting to see the response. I mean, I've never been to Venezuela. I haven't studied it extensively, the history of Venezuela. So I'm no expert on Venezuela. But looking at the people's response, in terms of who Venezuelans were, and they think this is a fantastic thing with Trump coming and liberating them, and they're going, if this is the price we have to pay in terms of oil, then so be it. It's worth it. I was watching a fascinating interview with a lawyer earlier this week who was from Venezuela, and he was saying, you know, you had to go onto the black market just to buy food, and you had your contact in the black market to buy food, basic food for you. You have radio systems, all this sort of stuff. He said, I actually didn't realize how much a prepper I was until I'd go to Western nations that didn't have that. So this is the extent of the oppression of socialism that has really come through here, to the point where entrepreneurship was discouraged to such an extent, and that's when the people suffer, when you can't buy and sell freely.
Yep. So just to add to that one, I'm actually a Panama resident, Australian citizen, Panama resident. I jump from country to country. One of the things, when I heard about this, the first thing I did, I jumped on my phone, called Juan, my lawyer in Panama, and said, hey, what the hell's going on? Can you give me a breakdown? And he said it was the greatest thing they've ever seen, even in Panama. So this is 2 countries across. You got Venezuela, you got Colombia, then you got Panama. And he was saying what happens is, because the drug cartels are such so powerful in South America, everyday people are scared. Like when we were there, we're in an apartment complex, and at night you can actually hear the gunfire going off regularly, and that's in the heart of Panama City. So the general population as a whole, the more they can kick out the drug cartels, the safer the people are. So you go shopping out, like they call it Super 99 over there. It's our Woolworths. So they've got all the chemists in there, all your baby formulas, your food, some fresh produce because they don't produce a lot. And you walk in there, and the first thing you're greeted with is 2 full tactical response security guards with full-on automatic. And I'm not talking like the little tiny AR-15s. I'm talking full, you will kill 100 people in 10 seconds assault rifles. And I was like, why? Like the first time I got there, I'm like, why the hell is there so much like ammunition and guns and firepower enough to take over a small country here? And because a lot of these countries are still cash-based economies, they've got millions of dollars sitting in these supermarkets, and they're a constant target for the cartel. So the security guards there have instructions: shoot on sight, just shoot to kill, don't care, shoot to kill. And that's how dangerous a lot of these South American countries are, because of the drug cartels. The everyday people don't have access to this sort of firearms. Don't have access to this sort of protection. So they're like, bring it on. I'm happy to be a lapdog of America if it means we've got freedom. And just going further into the oil, 90% of it goes to Petroleum Venezuela, or however they pronounce it, which is 90% of the GDP for the Venezuela, which all goes back to Madani, or whatever his name was, the former president of Venezuela. So none of that is actually going to the Venezuelan people.
Right. Okay.
I mean, going back to Venezuelan people is actually good for them.
It's really fascinating to see the context of all of this and how it plays out, guys, because we can very much get locked into our Western society thinking with blinders on. And just as we were catching our breath in terms of Venezuela, then Trump comes out and talks about Greenland. And this kind of threw a spatter to the works. People weren't expecting this. Have a listen to what Trump had to say at this press conference.
Are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S. takeover?
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay?
So I'm just going to quickly stop here. I just want to point something out. Have a look at that pin on his shirt, the little Trump figure. I think that's awesome. Back into it.
I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. man, and by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way. Please, go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. President, why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to affect the security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. You don't defend leases the same way. You have to own it. With a nation, look at what happened with Obama, with that horrible deal they made with Iran. It was a short-term deal. It was like a 9-year deal. Countries can't make 9-year deals or even 100-year deals. Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor in Greenland. Not going to happen. And by the way, and NATO's got to understand that. I'm all for NATO. I saved NATO. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a NATO right now. But we're not going to allow Russia or China to occupy Greenland, and that's what's going to happen if we don't.
So they're really strong words there from Trump. And I think it's really interesting to watch his demeanor there. What I think you've got to understand too is the relationship that Greenland had with the United States back in World War II. That area was under threat, and apparently one of the politicians from Denmark did a deal with the United States at that time for that military base to get there in the first time, unauthorized. So the US took that deal, and that unauthorized deal got that politician in big trouble. However, the concern was if the United States hadn't got in there, would Hitler have taken that over? That's a really interesting historical debate. So in terms of that military base that is in the US, there's been a long-term interest in Greenland. Obviously now rare earths are being identified as far as Greenland is concerned. It's absolutely rich with it. And so Trump's a businessman as well, and he wants to do whatever is great for the US economy as in terms of that. But yeah, really interesting spanner in the works on that. Did you want to say something on that, Travis?
I think something that I wouldn't mind doing is I've just pulled up a map of Greenland, and I'm going to pull it up now because I think a lot of people don't actually understand how important Greenland is as a security issue. They could also use, where is it? There it is at the stage. Beautiful. So this is just Google Maps. So if you zoom out a little bit, obviously you've got United States of America here. So you got to remember Russia's just here, and that's the whole reason they purchased Alaska. Alaska. So if you have a look over on the other side, this is all Canada on the east coast. You've got Greenland here, which also takes part of the Arctic Circle. So if, let's say, for example, Russia was to invade America this way, they'd have to come past Iceland and into Canada, America, one way. The other way is they can actually go through the poles and come down through Canada. China, again, is over here. So most people think they'll invade across the North Pacific Ocean, but they can actually, because they do control and operate through a lot of Africa, they can actually get into America through Africa instead. So having Greenland there makes a really, really large barrier between the United States and Alaska. So I can see Trump's reasoning. I can see it's the same basis and the same reasoning as why they purchased Alaska. But I think a lot of it is actually about the minerals and keeping the same as Venezuela. It was about keeping the oil from China and BRICS. I can see doing the same thing with Greenland is because why couldn't you just help out Iceland instead? much bigger population, but Greenland is where the resources are. So I think it's more of a case of keeping these critical resources away from China and Russia. I think that's more to the basis what it is, not so much for a security thing and things.
And if you pull the map down so you get a polar and Arctic perspective of it, because we often look at little Earth from the other side, but if you actually pull the map down, you'll see how close Russia is to Greenland there.
So Russia is just, I wish I could do things, but if you can see the mouse, it's just next to Finland. That's where Russia is. It's not that far to send a ship across. So
it's incredibly close.
A lot of people don't actually understand how close Greenland is actually to Canada. So
it's a stone's throw.
Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting what happens there. And I know Greenland has about 57,000 people there. I have heard rumors that citizenship is on the table for Greenland to become a part of America. To be honest with you, with a lot of people in Greenland, I think just the carrot of having citizenship, that would be a huge thing for them to go, you know what? Why not? Let's get all the benefits from America and still live at home.
Well, there's a great insight in terms of Republican Senator John Kennedy's perspective on this. If we have a look at this next video, I'll bounce off that once we've watched this, because got to remember, The Art of the Deal is the book that Trump has authored, one of them, and I wonder what he's actually playing for here. He tends to over-negotiate in his plays and then pull back. Is that what's happening? Let's have a look at this video.
Let me give you my perspective. Even a modestly intelligent ninth grader knows that to invade Greenland would be weapons grade stupid. Now, President Trump is not weapons grade stupid, nor is Marco Rubio. They do not plan to invade Greenland. That doesn't mean they're not going to seek a legal formal partnership with Greenland as to their and ours national defense. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying they will or won't, the president's not going to try to buy Greenland. There are 41,000 people, electors, eligible to vote in Greenland. If everybody votes, 20,501 Greenlanders can vote to join America. I'm not saying that will or won't happen, but I think that's really what the president is up to.
The question here is he over-negotiating by saying, we can do this the easy way, we can do this the hard way? It puts Denmark in a very interesting situation, of course, because of the NATO agreement. Okay, they're basically saying, look, if you do attack us, and then we're done with the NATO agreement, because under that agreement, if you are attacked, you come to the other's defense. So it's a really interesting shake-up as far as European politics is concerned, this whole move.
I think, I really think the NATO agreement needs to be looked at, because what other countries in NATO have a military defense force anywhere near what America has?
Well, the United States doesn't need that. I mean, Trump's view to it, I think, is that if we were attacked, he's not expecting any of the European countries to come to their aid.
Spot on. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no benefit. There's no benefit for America. And I think a lot of the European countries are going, oh, we can milk America for this one. They love their guns. They've got the rednecks in the South. Like, why do we need a military? Have a look at the New Zealand military. Have a look at the Australian ones. We've got some of the greatest troops in the world, but our military size just can't compare to a lot of the things. Like, how many aircraft carriers do we have? We have one of the largest coastlines in the world. How big is our navy? We should have one of the largest navies in the world, but we don't. How if China decides to come down to Australia en masse, how are we going to defend that? Wait for America to send all their ships over?
And not only that, Travis, but we're dependent on other nations to produce the submarines for us to defend our oceans and coastline. And that's the crazy part of it.
You've given the blueprints of our military defense, like arguably our most advanced military defense things in the Navy, to a foreign country. Like, when you trust another country, you have to trust all of their friends. And I just don't see it. And you have a look at the biggest countries in the world, like the strongest economies in the world, and they've all got massive militaries. Now, have they got massive economies because of the military, or have they got massive militaries because of their economy? I think it's the military creates a massive economy. That's just my personal belief.
It's a good theory, good one to debate. It's interesting how that's working. But you've got to wonder, is Trump over-negotiating here to get exactly what he wants to position Denmark in a different position, go, hey, let the people decide as to what they want, the people of Greenland, the ones who actually live there. I'd like us to have a look at this now. Where do we go from here? Well, it's interesting because what we've talked about is how silver has been doing its big run. We've also looked at how oil has been a big deal as far as Venezuela is concerned. We've looked at rare earths in terms of Greenland and where that is going. I really think it's interesting to see what the foreign policy of the United States is going to do here. And I think Marco Rubio really shows an insight as to how America's mindset is at the moment and where it stands, particularly with Europe, as all this upheaval goes. Now, you go, well, this is a money show. Why are you talking about politics so much? Because politics has a direct effect on the stock market, economies, and where things are going. Take a look at this response from him.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. They certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security. The United States is under attack from organized criminal narco-terrorists in our hemisphere, and the President is responding in the defense of our country. I do find it interesting that all these countries want us to send, and supply, for example, nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles to defend Europe. But when the United States positions aircraft carriers in our hemisphere where we live, somehow that's a problem. So I would say that the United States is, and this president has made very clear, his job is to protect the United States from threats against the United States, and that is what he's doing in this operation.
Really interesting insight there as far as where their mindset is concerned and what their view of the European Union is. Again, Trump has been negotiating with a lot of the Europe nations one-on-one as opposed to a union as whole, doing trade deals, which puts them in a really interesting situation, the European nations that is, in terms of how they relate to the organization, the EU. They're supposed to do it as a conglomerate, and Trump's kind of bypassing that and going, let's deal with you one-on-one.
Yep. One thing I thought was really interesting with what Rubio said is attacks to American citizens and American soil. A lot of people don't know that America's actually got what's called the Defense Act. It's been around nearly as long as the American Constitution, actually, which actually gives the American president, the reason they call him the Commander in Chief.
No, Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah. So the reason he's called that is because of the Defense Act. If there's any attack on the American people on American soil, he has the overriding authority to respond to that attack. He doesn't need to go through Congress. He doesn't need to go through the House. He is the commander-in-chief. He is the final say. The buck stops with him. So anyone says, "Oh, the attack on Venezuela wasn't authorized. The attack on Iran was illegal." No. That's been in place since day dot. So yes, it just frustrates me when people make all these claims and they don't actually have anything to back it up. So yes, he is the commander-in-chief. He does have the say.
And you're going to see a lot of that power. Trump's going to use that moving forward. I think we haven't seen the military law. My wife keeps saying this, you got to look at military law, Derek. You got to look at military law. She's always saying that to me. He knows who he is as commander-in-chief, and that, I think, is going to play into a big, big way in 2026.
Yeah.
All right.
So 2026 bingo card, just quickly. I think there's going to be a regime change in Iran is in the next month or so. That's my prediction. He's not going to stand by while these protests go on. So, but anyway.
Yeah. Let's have a look at this final one. Trump has made a big call in terms of how he relates to other nations in the world. If you put this sign up here, it kind of looks like this is the headlines. Where President Trump withdraws from international organizations that are contrary to the interests of the United States. This is a big deal. As a presidential memorandum on Wednesday last week, he directed all executive departments and agencies to immediately begin withdrawing the United Nations from more than 60 international and United Nations affiliated organizations, following a State Department review ordered earlier. And this is huge from Executive Order 14199, which was issued on the 4th of February. This means that, you know, they're going to be pulling funding away from a lot of groups like Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the International Renewable Energy Agency, the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change, the United Nations Population Fund, the United Nations Democracy Fund, the Peace Building Commission, and multiple UN economic and regional commissions operating under the Economic and Social Council. This is a massive shake-up, guys, in terms of America, where it's going to spend its money, what political agendas it's going to support. This is a massive thing. And keep in mind, this is all prior to Trump going off on January 19 to a place called Davos, where the World Economic Forum is going to be held.
So just something I got sent regarding that one. I don't think people actually understand how far-reaching this is, because there was another part to it which says that no bureaucrat is allowed to send money internationally. They cannot sign off on any international transfers. So it's not just these 66. Like, let's say someone, I don't know, they've got someone to do some contracting, and then they go, oh, by the way, our business is in Panama, or, you know, the Seychelles or Canary Islands or one of those offshore things. No, not allowed to send money there anymore. Has to go through a parliamentarian review. So all these, it's not just those big ones. It's all those little tiny transfers that happen here and there that aren't accounted for. I liken it to, in Australia, the number one employer of people in Australia is small businesses. Lots of little things adding up to the largest employer. How many of these little transactions happening in America that are going offshore are all of a sudden going to stop, and how much is that going to add up? Because when you're doing like a multi-trillion-dollar audit, you don't miss those little things. So I think this is a real kick in the guts to the bureaucrats. I think a lot of them are going to wake up tomorrow with a lot less money in their bank account. And
the globalists are being shook up.
Possibly the FBI door saying, hey, why are you trying to send all this money to international people when you have no rights to?
Well, the audit within America that was called out by a YouTuber of all things on these Somalian daycare centers that have been taking money, government money, taxpayer money, and they're not actually running a daycare, has shaken up. And the set has said, basically, this is the start of it. We're going to be looking very closely at where this funding's going. So get ready for 2026. Fasten your seatbelts. There's going to be a lot of shake-ups. I'm expecting a lot of volatility in the markets myself.
I think it's time to get
which leads to opportunity, big opportunity in terms of trading, which is what we teach at Blue Sky Factory, and all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, you beat me to it, Derek. I was going to give you a plug. So we do have about 30 seconds left on the show. So final things from me. I think everyone, especially now with how hectic everything's going to be. Remember, politics directly determines everything that you can and can't do in the country that you're in. Having that political knowledge and financial knowledge on how to protect your family's income and your family's assets is crucial. So blueskyfactory.com.au, reach out to Derek direct. Also, Derek, last thoughts. You got like 15 seconds. Go for it.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's going to be a wild ride, 2026. You think that was wild? I mean, gosh, we're only how many days into it, and all this has happened. I mean, Happy New Year, man! And this is our first show back for the year. Look at what's going to be achieved in the next 6 months. Can you imagine? It's going to be wild. So yeah, you need to have your finger on the pulse, but also be strategic about this, and don't be alarmed. I'm so excited. You think, why are you so excited about this? Because the systems are changing. The systems that have enslaved people for so long are changing very rapidly now. Will it be wild? Yeah. If you don't know what's really going on, could it look scary? Possibly. But we're not meant to operate in fear, out of peace. So if you can be peaceful, but also strategic in this great wealth transfer that's happening right now, there is so much opportunity, which I'm incredibly excited about.
Awesome. Anyway, Derek, once again, thank you for joining us on edgeradioaustralia.com. And for the people in East Perth, we do have the antenna up for the FM finally. So it's broadcasting on 87.6 FM. Yes, we are fully licensed to be able to start broadcasting. So we can truly call ourselves Edge Radio Australia. And we'll see you next week on Monday.